The time is precisely 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Dulmin Samarasinghe and read by Chandima Veerakon. Headlines. Discussions to bring down 600,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from Japan are successful. Investigations launched into reports stating corona vaccines are given for cash. All economic centres will be opened for trading on 12th and 13th. Consultant Doctors Association requests to further tighten travel restrictions. In news overseas, the UN warns of mass deaths in Myanmar after 100,000 flee fighting. In sports news, Australia withdraw from Olympic baseball qualifying tournament over COVID-19. Local stories in detail. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's request made to the Prime Minister of Japan, Yoshihide Suga, seeking to obtain 600,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine has been met with positive responses. President's media division said this was disclosed during a meeting held between the President and the Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Sugiyama Akira, at the Presidential Secretariat this morning. The Japanese government has also agreed to the President's request to provide medical supplies and healthcare equipment needed to contain the spread of the COVID-19 virus. The President has also drawn the attention of the Japanese ambassador to obtain technical assistance required to expeditiously respond to maritime accidents. Deputy Director General of the Health Ministry, Dr. Hemantha Herath, says that an investigation is underway on allegations that corona vaccines are given for cash. During a media briefing today, he said that the government has made arrangements to provide vaccines in a transparent manner. He said that the government will take necessary measures if there are reports that the vaccines are being given violating regulations and in an unjustifiable manner. Consultant Doctor Professor Guani Lianage said that more attention should be paid on children's health under present circumstances. Taking part in the media briefing, Consultant Dr. Dilhani Samarasekara said strict health measures should be maintained on airline passengers arriving in the country. All economic centres will be opened for trading on 12th and 13th. Management Assistant at the Kapitipola Economic Centre, Taranga Nilmini, said that mobile traders are successfully conducting their businesses despite travel restrictions. Administrator of the Meegoda Economic Centre, Chanaka Karunaratne, said that vegetables valuing 400,000 rupees which were brought yesterday were sold out today. The Consultant Doctors Association has requested President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to further tighten travel restrictions. They have pointed out that the number of corona patients shows an increase of 12% and the number of deaths 28%. The association has sent a letter to the President emphasizing the need to enhance travel restrictions. It has drawn the attention on the risk if the number of patients increase and becomes unbearable to the hospital system. Health authorities say that the immunity of the first dose of the AstraZeneca will remain for 6 months or more than that period, even though the second dose of the vaccine was not given on the due date. Chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation, Dr. Prasanna Gunasena, said that this has been disclosed in the reports of the World Health Organization. He said that Japan has agreed to provide the second doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to Sri Lanka. Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, in a telephone conversation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, on Monday, expressed his deep appreciation for the support extended by Russia towards Sri Lanka in addressing the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. In this regard, Foreign Minister Gunawardena welcomed Russia's assistance in accessing the Sputnik V vaccine to support Sri Lanka's nationwide inoculation program, as well as ongoing cooperation between institutes of epidemiology and biotechnology in producing the vaccine. The foreign minister also reiterated Sri Lanka's appreciation to Russia for the support extended to Sri Lanka in multilateral fora, including in the Human Rights Council. Bilateral consultations being scheduled within the framework of the two foreign ministries, as well as the Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific and Technical Cooperation were among other issues discussed. Environment Minister Mahinda Amaravira today instructed the Central Environmental Authority to take immediate action to ban polythene and plastic products from the second list, including single-use plastic items. He said the majority of the plastic items on this list can be produced using eco-friendly materials. The officials of the Central Environmental Authority informed the minister that steps have been taken to introduce eco-friendly alternatives for the production of all those products. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
Scan the Lanka QR code and make your payments with People's Pay mobile payment app from People's Bank.
Moving on with the local stories, the Parliamentary Council has agreed to appoint President of Court of Appeal Arjuna Abesekara as a Supreme Court judge. This decision was taken at the Parliamentary Council meeting held yesterday in Parliament. Secretary-General of Parliament Dhammika Dasanayake said the Parliamentary Council has agreed with the proposal to appoint KP Fernando, Judge of the Court of Appeal, to the post of the President of the Court of Appeal. The Parliamentary Council also agreed to appoint Sasi Mahendran, High Court Judge, as a Judge of the Court of Appeal. In addition, the Parliamentary Council has agreed to appoint Supreme Court Justice LTB Dehidinia as a member of the Judicial Service Commission. An extraordinary gazette has been issued to establish a new state university named University of Vaunia with effect from the 1st of August 2021. Minister of Education Professor G.L. Pires published the relevant notification by virtue of the powers vested in him by Section 21 of Universities Act No. 16 of 1978. Thereby, the order made under the said Act to establish the Vaunia campus of the University of Jaffna will be revoked effective from the 31st of July. The new state university is being established for the purpose of providing, promoting and developing higher education in the branches of learning of business studies, applied science and technology studies. Search operations carried out by the Navy from April to the 5th of this month in the Northern and North Central Naval Commands led to the apprehension of 45 suspects with 4,040 illegally harvested sea cucumbers and diving gears. The operations have been conducted by the North Central Naval Command in the sea areas of Valaipadu and Kiranchi and the Northern Naval Command in seas of Vatakalani, Nagarkovil and Point Pedro. To end the local news, the headlines again. Discussions to bring down 600,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines from Japan are successful. Investigations launched into reports stating corona vaccines are given for cash. All economic centres will be opened for trading on 12th and 13th. Consultant Doctors Association requests to further tighten travel restrictions. That ends local news.
Nobody tells time like this. So why do you still pay with cash when you have People's Pay mobile app from People's Bank? Scan the Lanka QR code and make your payments with People's Pay mobile payment app from People's Bank.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
On the main news story, State Minister Susil Premajayantha says that the National Institute of Education has prepared plans to make a proper educational methodology to present educational programs over television channels. The State Minister said today the project will be implemented in August. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watch Light. Steps have been taken to send medicine by post to the patients who are attending clinics of the National Eye Hospital. Director of the hospital, Dr. Ajit Dantanarayana, said that the patients who expect to get their medicines by post should give their clinic file number, address and telephone number by calling over the telephone number allocated to the respective eye specialist. The relevant telephone numbers have been published in the website of the eye hospital. That ends Watchlight. We move on to world news. The headlines. The UN warns of mass deaths in Myanmar after 100,000 flee fighting. Syria says Israeli attacks targeted Damascus. US super-rich pay almost no income tax. A United Nations rights expert has warned of mass deaths from starvation, disease and exposure in eastern Myanmar after brutal, indiscriminate attacks by the military forced tens of thousands of people to flee their homes in Kaya state. In a statement today, Tom Andrews, the UN Special Rapporteur for Myanmar, called for urgent international action, saying attacks by the military, which took power after a February coup, were threatening the lives of many thousands of men, women and children in Kaya or Karenni state. Israeli air attacks struck central Syria late yesterday, with state news agency Sana reporting explosions in Damascus before adding that its air defenses had been activated against the Israeli aggression. Israeli planes arrived from Lebanese airspace. It did not mention any reports of casualties or damage, but the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights told media at least 8 pro-government fighters were killed in the attacks that took place late yesterday. Details claiming to reveal how little income tax US billionaires pay have been leaked to the news website. ProPublica says it has been the tax returns of some of the world's richest people, including Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Warren Buffett. The website alleges Amazon's Mr. Bezos paid no tax in 2007 and 2011, while Tesla's Mr. Musk paid nothing in 2018. ProPublica said the richest 25 Americans pay less in tax, an average of 15.8% of adjusted gross income, than most mainstream U.S. workers. To end the world news, the headlines again. The UN warns of mass deaths in Myanmar after 100,000 flee fighting. Syria says Israeli air attacks targeted Damascus. U.S. super-rich pay almost no income tax. That ends world news. And moving on to development news, the Cabinet has approved to set up the country's first dedicated export agro-value chain development industrial zone in a 64-acre land in Alpitia. The proposed zone is to be established in a 64-acre land owned by the Land Reforms Commission in Alpitia. The Cabinet of Ministers on Monday approved the proposal submitted by Minister of Plantation Ramesh Patirana to allocate land plots to 14 investors initially in the first phase of the project. That ends development news. Up next is the sports news, Olympics and football. In Olympics, Australia has withdrawn from the final baseball qualifying tournament for the Tokyo Olympics over COVID-19. Baseball Australia Chief Executive Glenn Williams said the insurmountable challenges to logistics and safety forced the decision. The qualifying event was moved from Taiwan to Mexico last month over concerns of a surge in COVID-19 cases and despite a rise in cases in Mexico. British skateboarders Kai Brown and Bombette Martin have both qualified for the Tokyo Olympics. Brown, aged 12, hopes to become Britain's youngest ever Olympian, but must wait for the formal selection process to find out whether she will make history. Brown and British champion Martin, aged 14, are among 20 qualifiers for the women's park event based on world rankings at the end of the qualification period. And on football, Brazil's players have criticized the decision to hold the Copa America in their country. South America Football Confederation, CONMEBOL, moved the tournament from Argentina on 1st June. Co-host Colombia had already been dropped amid civil unrest there. That ends sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
On business news, Prime Lands Residencies Limited PLC's shares, which began trading yesterday on the Colombo Stock Exchange, closed 150 rupees or 12.42% higher than the issue price, amid much investor interest. The share, which opened at 1160 rupees, up from the issue price of 1040 rupees, hit an intraday high of 1490 before closing at 1160 rupees. That ends business news.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Taking a look at economic news, listed corporates delivered their best ever earnings for the quarter ended March 2021 as the companies benefited from the resurgent economy due to easing of restrictions, and exports grew at a robust pace, lifting multiple sectors barring a few such as leisure. The earnings data compiled by First Capital Research showed the listed entities recorded a 206.9% surge in their after-tax profits for the January-March quarter this year compared to the same 3 months in 2020. That ends economic news.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And finally, on the weather report, the Met Department says showers will occur at times in the western, Sabragamua and northwestern provinces and in the Gaul, Mathura, Nuwara and Kandy districts. Fairly heavy falls above 50 millimeters can be expected at some places in the Sabragamur province and in the Nuwara district. Showers or thunder showers may occur at a few places in Uva province during the evening or at night. Wind speed can increase up to 40 kilometers per hour at times in the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. That ends the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To end this bulletin of news, the headlines again. Discussions to bring down 600,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from Japan are successful. Investigations launched into reports stating corona vaccines are given for cash. All economic centres will be opened for trading on 12th and 13th. Consultant Doctors Association requests to further tighten travel restrictions. In news overseas, the UN warns of mass deaths in Myanmar after 100,000 flee fighting. In sports news, Australia withdraw from Olympic baseball qualifying tournament over COVID-19.